I
We're
want to
ready.
eat my dinner. Thank you.
See you, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Make host. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Take care.
Marshall should be along shortly. I don't know if you just saw, he just pushed over a document to us.
Okay.
It's actually what we're going to be talking about tonight. So
Yep.
I'm assuming he'll be able to share a screen with us, but. Oh, here's Marshall now. So I gotta let him in. Hi, Marshall.
Hi, how is everyone?
Good. Okay, we got everybody, so let's call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And I want to start out by thanking Walt for covering for me 2 weeks ago. I got tied up at a late doctor's appointment with my wife in Boston, and I got back to Ashburnham about 7:30. So I had good intentions of trying to jump on, but I couldn't see doing it on the car ride back. So I did get an opportunity to watch the meeting. So I am up to speed on what was discussed there, and which was all good.
It's a team effort.
notes. So that's good. So and then again, I extend my apologies for screwing up last week by not getting the meeting posted. It just got away from me, and what are you gonna do?
Well, I'll ask this question for Glenn. Does that mean our deadline can be moved up a week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can be moved a week later.
That would be nice.
So what I'd like to do, if you guys are interested, so Marshall just sent the table of contents work over. So I'd like to set that aside for a second though, and talk about general code. I was going to bring it up under new business, but I think if you guys are agreeable to it, we can do it now. So as I had said in the email, I talked to a couple of people on the phone about this, but I honestly can't take any credit for this. This came from Debbie Phillips. I had spoken to her, and she had done some work and had spoken to some folks at the Attorney General's office. And I got to tell you, I've looked at Templeton. I confirmed with the lady at General Code a short time ago. They in fact did the Norwell site as well. That's obviously we've been using as a template. And I asked her for some contacts. So I have the town clerk at Norwell's contact information, and they just finished up, or they're in the process of finishing up Rentham. So I have her phone number and email contact as well. So I will be reaching out to both of them next week and just trying to get general impressions from them about how it went. But my own personal opinion is that, this thing does everything we need it to do. The question ultimately will be, how many tens of thousands of dollars is it going to cost us to get it done? So.
Yeah, I looked at it and I thought it was terrific. I went to some of their web pages, and geez, it just seems like rather than us beating our heads against the wall trying to make it work, seemed like a viable approach.
Yeah, no, and I talked to Brian at some length yesterday.
Okay.
And because when I asked them, I can't remember if I told you or not, but they are in fact submitting a proposal.
Right.
They said it'd be 2 weeks or less. I had to get back with her with some information on, I think, Monday, and I did. And it's as she had indicated, if there's a few things missing, it's not going to make that much of a difference one way or another. Right. And I'll be frank with you, I came around and told her, I said, her name is Carolyn. I said, Carolyn, honestly, we have a pretty good idea of the direction we want to go in. I think it aligns quite nicely with what you do. But at the end of the day, we don't really have any idea what the hell we're doing, as far as, putting the time and effort in to try to format this. And as you look through the stuff that's on those websites, it's like, this is a good situation for us if we can make the numbers work here.
Yeah. I think it's a good little niche business that they have, or that they've carved out for themselves, and becoming an expertise in something that I bet you every town struggles with. And I like I agree with Glenn. I think get the proposal back and then get them in here to talk to us so that we can really ask them the questions.
Yeah, they have agreed to come on with us. They didn't want to do that until we had the proposal in our hands.
Yep.
So,
Makes
so
sense.
again, as soon as we get that, and what I did was I asked her to address the proposal to Brian. He's the town administrator, the chief procurement officer. I've been communicating with him via email, and I asked him to, to reach out to Templeton and talk to them. I don't know if he's done that or not, but I told him, I basically said, is it okay if I do this? And he didn't get back to me right away. So I said, oh, the hell with it. He works for me anyway. So,
Yes.
so I sent the email back to her and, I copied him and I said, yeah, we want a proposal. Please address it to Brian. And I gave her all the contact information. So I talked to him yesterday. He was perfectly fine with it because again, I wasn't stepping out of line too far.
So today's the 25th, and so next week is April 1st, end of the week, April 2nd. So 2 weeks from now would be the 9th, or am I too many weeks? April 9th, right? Yeah.
The 8th, the 8th.
So that's, we're all marching to May 1st. We're trying to get something, the phase one, try to, whatever that is. We can talk about that to the selectmen. So haven't we done that? Do we need to review that language and go? So in 2 weeks, if we have that, we might have a proposal. The money's where we think is doable. We might even have a cost associated with that. The only reason I asked if they could come in sooner before they wrote the proposal, because again, is it $1 zillion? And if it is, could we work with them and could they do, if there's 10 parts to it, maybe we look at it, hey, we can do parts 1 through 3. That's the only reason I would ask, but let's not lose any time. I guess 2 weeks, we got a proposal. We know, I don't want to say worst case, but if they do it all, here's X. So at least we have some place to start there.
The other thing too that you have to remember is that with whatever the number comes back, when we had talked to Lorraine, over the 18 months, we were looking around $20,000, maybe $21,000 all in for them to do that. So like we said all along, is that too much? Is it too little? We just didn't really have any frame of reference with it. So, but the good news is this is going to be over a minimum of 2 fiscal years and possibly 3 fiscal years, because it's possible that we could, we could make a deal with these folks. We could expend some revenue in this fiscal year because we do have some monies that are going to be available. So we could expend some monies in this fiscal year and then budget part of it in the next fiscal year and potentially in the 3rd fiscal year, depending on, how long this takes and what really goes on with the whole thing. So when you divide that number up over 3 years, I think it becomes more palatable.
Yeah, that's a great approach. So, I think it's going to be more than the 20. Reading through, looking at Norwell, I think there's a lot of hours there. That's great. Divided by 3 now, because again, we asked this what's the timeline? The timeline, we're supposed to review this approximately every 5 years.
Right.
And we're a little behind, and we know there's some issues. So if we miss this year, if we at least know we're done by 50% end of this year, the 30, 20, whatever that is, I think that's, that's something, at least we're driving to that.
I visited their website, and there's basically, I think 5, maybe 6 steps that they've outlined in a progression. Mm-hmm. And they have little explanations next to what each one of those steps is. So, if we follow that programmatic diagram, then maybe they do, step 1. And then over the 3 fiscal years, which finally leads to the, adoption of what they finally come up with. But I mean, this isn't going to be done overnight anyway.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot, one of their emails says, this is what we were able to glean from the town's website. Are we missing something? And they had a whole bunch of, website listings of rules and regulations and bylaws, blah, blah, blah. And that's just the beginning.
Right,
And,
right.
and so then, that's part of step one. I mean, if they were to map this out, schedule wise, I don't know what they'd come up with, but like I said, a couple of years is probably not out of the question.
Right. And as far as what the selectmen have asked for, with the May 1, I'm not at all worried about that because I think, well, some people may not think so. I think we got a lot of stuff done so far. And Marshall, you put a lot of time and effort into, reorganizing this thing, which is great. And and again, the fact that we've been using Norwell is, kind of in the same wheelhouse. So,
Right.
not because I'm there, but we go to the Board of Selectmen and we say, okay, here's what we've done. We've done our due diligence. We've looked around. We've gotten town council involved. Recommendations have been made. She's spoken to the Attorney General's office. We've had, I will have talked to town clerks in 2 different communities that use this company. They will have been here to us and made a presentation. Matter of fact, I'll invite the Board of Selectmen to attend that meeting when they make the presentation, and the town administrator will get everybody on the same meeting here. And I think we've got a good story to tell. I compare this to what we've been going through the last year with our financial situation. And if I've said this in the past, I apologize, but we had to get ourselves to a point as a community where we drew a line in the sand and said, okay, from here forward, we are clean and we know exactly what's going on. So that's what we did. We wrote a bunch of stuff off. We cleared up the books that some things were hanging around at the Department of Revenue. They didn't like them, and every year was a clean. Brian cleaned everything up. We have a clean slate, and now we have a clear path forward. And I use that same comparison with what we're trying to do with the bylaws. The things that they listed, general code listed, who knows if that's probably just the beginning. There's probably more things that we're going to find. And as we find them and get them cleared out, then we're going to have the same thing. We're going to go to town meeting and say, okay, folks, we're clean from this point forward. Here's the process we have to follow. I'm as excited about what they do after the fact when we get this codification done as to what they're going to do for that, because for not a lot of money, $1,300 a year, they will basically maintain this thing, and we send them information. They'll even do the legal review on all this stuff.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I talked to Debbie. She was not troubled by that at all. So, she said, after it's cleaned up, I'd still like to be involved. And I said, well, you probably will be. But now, if we do engage them, I would recommend we do the legal as well, because if not, they do something, now we got to send it off to town council, and there's going to be weeks involved with that before we get it back. I just think it's just going to make the process that much longer.
I agree. And it's better if a single entity is responsible.
Right. And I looked at, I went into Templeton's today and I was messing around. And again, as you look through that document, they have a table of bylaw compilation on the towards the end of the thing, where it takes all the old bylaws with the old numbers and everything else, and it lists the reference of what the new one is, the chapter, the article, everything's right there. So that's what we were talking about doing as well, having to make all these notations. Well, they're going to do all that stuff for us. So, and as much as I would love to give the business to Lorraine, I look at this and say, we have a responsibility to do what's in the best interest of the town. She is admitted that she doesn't have any experience doing this as well. So again, we'll see what the numbers look like, but I'd be hard pressed to, not vote in favor of doing this and moving forward with this company. So.
No, and that will make the 5-year review that much simpler. If they, as you say, for a minimal fee, will keep everything up to snuff on an annual basis, then when the 5-year review comes around, it should be straightforward.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be what are the new things we need to look at, and if there's been significant changes in MGL or something, you just deal with those. Everything else is clean. It's up to date. It's numbered correctly. the way that you're grouping these things, Marshall, and getting them all. I mean, I haven't worked with it that much. You folks deal with it a lot more than I do. But the few times I've gone in to try to find something, it's like, are you kidding me? So if you're John Q. Public, you are screwed to try to find information.
Well, I'm finding new regulations. Like, did you all know that we have stable regulations for horses?
I did. It's on
Yeah.
the,
Okay,
on the Board of Health.
but whatever. I mean,
To your point, what I've done behind the scenes is, because we weren't really talking about Board of Health, and that's one of the issues that for
Oh, you
Norwell,
would, yeah.
they put Board of Health under there.
Right.
I was proactive. I went to Rick Metcalf and had him not give me a proposal, but just listen. I'm in the same boat really as this bylaw committee, because the Board of Health, I've been on it for 20 odd years. You're supposed to review those too, and I don't recall ever reviewing that. There aren't as many bylaws on there as the full package for the town. So he said, we could work through that, and it would probably take us, 6 to 10 months to go through everything. And I said, well, write up something. He did write up something. I'll forward it to you in the next couple of days. I just got it. I was going to actually use it for the next week's meeting with our board members. Listen, this is what's going on with the bylaw for the general chapter. We're trying to review the information that's there, and we're required actually by law to do this every 3 to 5 years. So I was going to bring it up there. So I want you to know that I have something from Rick Metcalf. And looking at Norwell, there's a Board of Health is underneath that. You click on it, you go there, and there is stable, there's tobacco, all those things are there. So,
Right.
So it looks like, that should be there. Those rules are, the whole one-stop shopping for all these towns, that if I'm building, I'm doing something, I go to the website, it's all there. So
Yep.
this is pretty clean. Before I forget, it's all about the money, and they won't like this, but maybe you can call Templeton and Norwell, and everybody's different, how much of a mess. I'd love to know right now, plus or minus, what Noel paid or Templeton. Do you have a relationship? Doesn't someone know, one of the town managers? They say, how
No,
much do you pay for that?
I'll find out. I'll call him. I mean, I may try to call him tomorrow and just say, look, first of all, it's public information. So
Okay.
it's not like we're asking him to give him a trade secret. I could FOIA it if I wanted to, and get it that way. So it shouldn't be that difficult for us to get the information. And again, just give me a ballpark number. If they come back and say it's 50 grand, it's like, okay, that's a tougher pill to swallow.
Right. I didn't want to wait 2 weeks to hear 50, 100, 150.
Yeah.
And every consultant in the world hates to give you a number because, well, everybody's different. Well, we're really not. And I look at Norwell, Templeton, I see what's there. It is how much of a mess is the information. But, Marshall, to his credit, again, he's put together stuff that looks like our information's there. It's just not organized very well. Okay. And it needs to come. So I would think that we're in the same boat as, and again, just to get a ballpark, if we wait 2 weeks, now we're April 8th. We're supposed to report back May 1st. How are you doing? We would love, as a committee, to go, hey, here's a proposal, $9.99 today only, and it does everything. And so why wait? Because if it is that high, we got 4 weeks to sort of keep moving forward, possibly, still get their proposal and everything, but at least, we know where we're at. I won't sleep at night until I hear the number. Okay.
I'll one way or another, I'll get a number
All right.
from both of them, see where we are.
Yeah.
The other thing too is when we look at around that May 1 timeline, I mean, we got town meeting coming up, I think on the 4th, but we're actually, I think the procedure is that we're going to have to ask the Board of Selectmen to support what we're doing and vote to authorize the expenditure of the funds.
Right.
So I would look to do that all in one shot. So we would need to know what the number is and get with Brian, and he could give us the details of how he proposes to fund it and how we move forward, things like that. So I already think government moves too slow. I'm not looking to push this thing out weeks and weeks and weeks as we, try to get everything aligned. So,
if it's public information, I would know, just send the proposal that, that they were sent. We could at least get a look at that, and well, yeah, it's 50 grand, but here's why. But here's the original part, how you started. This is divided by 3. So if it is 60,000 divided by 3, it's 20 grand. For the product that we're all seeing, I think it's well worth it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real no-brainer, and look how professional that looks. Wouldn't you be proud as at your town and looks, you're clicking on numbers, everything's there, it's well organized. I mean, this is a really, I think looks like a great company to go with. And
I want to know too, what our general code's competition? Who else is in the market that has this expertise and does this? And, like I said, I think they're niche and they may have, a little bit of a monopoly on the Massachusetts small town market or whatever. But I think given what I can only guess what the number is going to be. And I think we're all in the range of what it's probably going to be. We may have to get some kind of competitive check against them. Although I don't think it's all about the money. It's about what's the product they're going to produce. But I think that will be a question that Brian will end up asking and having to deal with. So we need to know who their competition is.
well, Bill might get that tomorrow. Bill, just ask if you're going to call them and get a copy, hey, how many proposals did you get?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Because, I spent a fair amount of time on the web trying to get information. And I went to the Mass Municipal Association and tried to search their stuff. I got nothing, and Debbie called me last week and, again, I had spoken to her a few weeks ago and told her, what we were trying to do and making sure we were doing the right thing. So she had said that I'm going to do some research for you. So I don't know if she got it from the Attorney General's office or where she got it from, but this is not a Massachusetts-based company. I believe this is a national company, and they have 2 or 3 editors that work here in Massachusetts, work on Massachusetts stuff. But I think they're working in a lot of states around the country. So I'll try to find out what I can to who the other players are.
Well, her email, Carolyn's email says account manager, New England. So
Right.
It's definitely has a national presence. So let's ask if there are other people out there. That's great. So I guess tomorrow would be nice to hear some feedback on it, because we're going to wait 2 weeks. I think that's too long. We're going to run out. We're going to hit the 8th, have a meeting, go, oops, too high. Let's find out now, because I think it's going to be a lot more than the 20 for the product that they've done.
I think you're right.
Given the current state of affairs, yes.
Yeah. All right. So do we not have a meeting tonight, or is there? Let me skip to that. There are 3 things written on the bylaw review committee and our goals. There are 3. The first one, explore examples, review past best practices, new framework, and this actually is taken care of by this company if we get them. Does this allow us to focus and sort of jump ahead to number 2 or 3? And that, Dave brought up at one point, and Marshall, we know there's some specific bylaws that are issues. Do we sort of jump in and for the next 2 weeks until we get a proposal and maybe focus and discuss the things that we know are wrong? I know we can't change them by law, but is that something that we do? Have a meeting tonight and maybe again pinpoint those things. No?
Yeah, Glenn, I agree with that. That if we do hire these people, general code, then we'll have some very specific things that we can say to them as part of your proposal and what you're going to do for us. This is exactly, specifically the wording that needs to be changed. The definition needs to be added. This needs to be deleted. We could have some very specific things to run in front of them and tell them this is what we need changed. I think that's a great idea, Glenn.
Yeah. So I don't know if do we all go back again? Dave, you've been doing it for a while, and Marshall, you seem to have some things already. Do we even talk about it tonight, or wait for the 8th? And what happens in 2 weeks? I guess, Bill, we need are they coming back on the 8th and going to hand us a presentation that we review? And then we're going to need a whole meeting just to look at that, or if not a couple. So
my expectation is that we'll have the proposal in advance of the meeting that we'll be able to get a look at. Everybody will have a chance to, if we get it that night, you talk about being under the gun, you're going to try to read through it and think about it and come back with stuff. So I think they're well versed in, municipal law and what we have to do. So I think we'll get it in advance. It'll have some numbers on there. I'm sure it'll have some other things like, the after you're done services, it'll be broken out in various components. But yeah, I was thinking about that sitting here today, working on some things about, again, Marshall's got a ton of time invested in redoing this. And not that I think this has been a waste of time for him, but I don't want him to devote a ton of other time if we're going to take this and say, here you go, general code, this is where we are so far, and run with it. But my thought is that I think we may want to, for the next couple of weeks, do kind of what you're talking about, is let's look at where some of the gaps are. Maybe some of the bylaws that Marshall has picked out and said, gee, maybe we got to think about doing some of that, some things along those lines, so that again, in 2 weeks, we'll know, I think, if we're going to have a deal or not have a deal.
Okay.
If we don't have a deal, then we pick up where Marshall left off here and we just keep moving forward. If we do have a deal, now we've got a couple of weeks under our belt of doing some additional investigation and looking at, where some of the areas are. Or, the other side of that is, and I think Walt talked about this last week, maybe we just take a look at what we are and go through and figure out the ones we think we're good with and get those
That's
on.
good point. Yep.
I think that's really the first step, instead of trying to figure out
What's wrong?
all the things that are wrong. Let's find out what we're good with and then focus on what we're not.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But as far as I'm concerned, I'm done with the outline TOC. I mean, it's as streamlined and based on Norwell's as I can make it. I can't do anything else to it. So, it is what it is at this point. And, if it is a go with general code, then, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. So,
Yeah.
But at least, is something, I guess it's a product that you could, present to the board and say, well, this is the track that we were looking to follow.
Okay.
In general.
So Walt, what do you think?
I think that's good. I mean, I agree. I don't think working through the outline as Marshall has put together is a waste of time. I mean, because basically it's, as we work through the outline, we're being able to look and say, hey, this is good. We don't see any issues. We can highlight the issues that we have. And I think we're in a strong position that when general code does come to the table, we have something to really start to talk to them about and turn over to them. And this has been what I've found productive about this is forcing some focused attention to the bylaws I'm supposed to understand, but I don't understand. It's forcing, and it's also forcing us to pull things together that we know are missing. Things like, all the list of things that we're finding that you can't find on the website, or they're in a secluded place on the website, and you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't even know they were supposed to be in this outline if somebody didn't call them to our attention.
Yeah, it's like a GIS, hunt.
Yeah.
No, the what we've done to this date is clearly not a waste of time. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that,
Oh, no.
And as you dig through and you find these things, it's like, okay, I didn't know that. And I think will prepare us well to move forward. But like Marshall said, now he's pretty much done with that piece of it. So
yeah, I'm done.
I think we should walk through the work that he's done. I don't know if you can share your screen, Marshall, or not, but
I can't right now.
Okay.
I can.
It's
I can share what he just sent me.
What you see is just, without all the editorial comment, it doesn't say, this section is now this section or anything else. It's just forget about all that. It's irrelevant. This is what.
You have to give me permission to share.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, that's Bill has to.
Yeah, I'm let's see.
Oh, Bill.
Share
Yeah.
screen.
Yep. Right click on share screen. And then you'll be able to say multiple.
Now I've lost everything.
Okay, so just go to share, come back to where you were before. Go down to share screen, put your cursor on it and right click on it. And it should be able to give you the ability to click on multiple screens, multiple users.
Right click on it, huh?
Yeah, I can't do it. It's gotta be,
Yeah,
Is
it's,
anybody having a problem with the connection? I keep losing you. Oh, now here you are again.
Nope, we can hear you, Dave, but we can't see you.
there you go.
There you go. Okay.
yeah, right clicking isn't getting it, Walt. I don't know.
So when you click on share screen, what do you get?
I get a pop-up that says basic advanced files, share computer sound, optimize screen sharing.
No, I don't get that. I get host disabled participants screen sharing. So there's somewhere in there where you can give permission to others to share.
This, I clicked on it and it said host disabled participant
That's
screen
right.
sharing.
Yeah, that's the same thing for me. So Bill's now the host.
Right.
Yeah, and mine's not. I right click, I get nothing.
Really? With your cursor over the green
Yep.
share screen. Huh.
It should say share if you put the cursor just over it.
Yeah. And then if you then it kind of lights up.
Yeah.
Then you right click on that. You're supposed, that's how it works for me.
Yeah, it's
It's not doing it for
got to
you.
be operator error because it's not letting me do anything.
Well, do you have what Marshall just sent you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to try something here. If I lose you, I'll be back.
Looks pretty, Marshall.
Isn't it just, yeah.
I have Marshall's document in front of me too. We could just walk through it, whether it's on the screen or not. It'd be better on the screen, but I've got the email and then I just opened up the Word
Yeah,
document.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually printed it out, so it's not. Let me.
All right, Dave, you have the email and a copy of this, Dave? Marshall put
no.
together, it's a Word document.
Yeah, it is a word.
He sent the document like at 5:55. He asked us all to review it before the meeting.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted detailed comments. Yeah. I
Because
mean,
everybody
it's-
has it. Do you have it, Dave?
Yes, I do. I see it on, I'm on. Yeah. Oh, hold on a
it's
minute.
basically everything we looked at before, only without all the editorial
Yep.
comments. I tried to just make it like a straight, as if you'd never seen it before, table of contents, and doesn't make sense. And this, I guess, is what general code will do anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
And following Norwell's example, I really did like the fact that like health and public safety bylaws are all lumped together. Land use and natural resources are lumped together. Streets and ways were lumped together. I mean, it just was so much easier to look at a subject area rather than have them scattered to the four winds.
Yeah, I got it. I'm looking at it now.
And again, some of these chapters or divisions, weren't in our bylaws before, but hey, they seem to make sense.
Yeah.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Still can, yep.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I cannot get the video back.
Okay, we can see you and hear you.
All right, well,
I can
then,
see you and hear you.
then carry on, because I'm listening. I'm just trying to figure out how to get back in this damn thing.
Why don't we just take it one page at a time? And if we can all put it up, I'm gonna put it so I have one page on the full screen. And so I have one page on the full screen, and just walk us through it, Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Page one.
yeah, basically we have 5 divisions overall. The first one being the town charter, which is something we didn't have before. But seems appropriate that, you know, this is a good place to put it. So that would be Division 1. Division 2 are our general bylaws. And then what I've done is, again, following the lead of others, is to lump them by generic category: town government and administration. And then I've renumbered all these chapters, you know, one through whatever. And then under the chapters, there's articles, which that's just a name I gave it. They could be any, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, all the town employees articles are in one place, finances in one place, licenses and permits is in one place. And then I added, there were a couple of things that we didn't have, like peddling and soliciting, which, you know, we can either include or not include. Self-service gas stations was something we didn't have. And town property, you know, Walt, as you said, you know, care and custody of town property. There were gifts of town property, which was good. And then, you know, you go to, that was all part 1, was kind of administrative and town government. And then part 2, health and public safety. I lumped all those together. Then land use and natural resources, have protection of wells was a bylaw, water use, wetlands, right to farm, low impact development, just demolition to delay, recycling. Then you go to part 4, streets and ways. Again, then you get zoning bylaws, which I didn't mess around with the numbering system per se under the zoning bylaws. They're called sections, and that's the way I left them. There are some wacky numbering systems, or there's 2 or 3 different numbering systems that are in the zoning bylaws right now. So that needs to be made uniform. And I tried to indicate where those were. Again, there's no section 5.9. I don't know how that happened, but whatever. The only other thing I did point out was where we needed to incorporate some town meeting articles that were kind of hanging out on a limb and not really integrated into the right spot in the bylaws. Division 4 was a new header called enforcement. And then the last division, which is what Walt, I think you suggested, is to have a Division 5 rules and regulations where, you know, they're all, rather than mixed with the bylaws, they shouldn't be mixed with the bylaws. They should be, they're rules and regulations which implement the bylaws. So they should be under a separate category. And that's what the last page amounts to. Do I have them all? I don't know. I continue to look, and I have several of them.
Just a couple of quick tests. Where's scenic road?
If you go under rules and regulations.
Okay. That's a rules and regulation, not a bylaw.
It's not a bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the general bylaws.
Okay. Okay, where is green business zoning?
Well, that's in zoning That's in section 2 of use districts.
use districts. So it's a subdivision of that.
It's in section 2.2 of the zoning bylaws, location of districts.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna pull my book up. No, I like this a lot better. A lot better. Shows you that my
Yeah, I
pages.
mean, you're right that there is, like in section 5.1.4 under the zoning regs.
Yep.
Is common driveways.
Yep.
But there's also, there are also rules and regulations for private common driveway special permits, which is different from that which is in the zoning bylaws. So again, you have a bylaw, and then you have rules and regs implementing the bylaw.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it's like statutes and regulations.
Yep. There's a whole thing that I'm trying to find now, which is not under 2.2, which was a whole separate spell out of green business.
Well, you know,
That's just an example. It's
The-
I'm just
the
using it as an example of how screwed up this is.
well, no, that you're absolutely correct. If you go under, and whoever took the easy way out, because with the exception of the Wetlands and Watershed Protection District, which I'm trying to get rid of, and the Green Business District, which is 1,000 feet on either side of Route 119.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the business district, that's contained within, for the most, I think all of it is contained within the green business, but it's a dimensional thing.
Mhm.
And back in the old 1970s zoning map, there are distances from the Ashby Town line, et cetera, et cetera. You know, some people can't fathom that we're still functioning on a 1970s zoning map, but we are. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so anyway, most of the districts, besides a couple, under section 2.2 are basically say, see the zoning map. They don't define it. They just say, see the zoning map.
Mhm.
And if you look at something like, as I'm discussing with Roger Hoyt and others at MRPC right now, that like the light industrial B makes absolutely no sense. There's no definition of where it is, what it is, except for see the map. And the map makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Is that the ones that we put in the wetlands?
No, it's the one that's out on the Winston line along Route 12.
Oh, near the dump?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just baffling, you know, why it looks the way it does. But anyway, that's kind of something to be dealt with on another day.
All right, so, so
And I'm having this thing with the planning board and MRPC where, you know, I'm trying to have the W district, the Wetlands and Watershed Protection District, as Dave knows, repealed. And then Roger and the planning board are trying to, as Walt knows, trying to revise certain sections of the bylaws to comply with the consent order issued by DEP in 2015, which said that our zoning bylaws were not up to snuff relative to water supply protection. And that's what's being worked on now in anticipation of the next town meeting. And I've been feeding comments to both Roger and MRPC, and I am trying to caution them not to go too crazy with, you know, just focus on what it is, you know, needs to be done right now.
okay, so, are we done with the table of contents in your estimation though?
I mean, I can't do anything more with it. I mean, it's
I think,
straightforward.
I think we're done. That doesn't mean that, like, for example, I cannot find the green business. It's not really about location. It's about definition of it. It's about, you know, the rules that you apply. I can't find it right now, but that would be a 2.3 that would get added to this thing or something like that, because it's somewhere else.
Mhm.
And it was probably written well after this table of contents was put together, and it hasn't been properly injected in that. But in
Well-
fact, all of the definition of what the districts mean should be in here.
Well, you know, if you go to section 2.1 of the current zoning bylaws,
Yep.
you know,
mean, there.
it's listed as a district.
Yep.
And then when you go to section 2.2, districts, blah, 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 the section 2.21, you know, are located as indicated on the zoning map.
Mhm.
And then green business in the next paragraph is Route 119 from Mashpee Town Line to the New Hampshire State Line, 2,000 feet on either side of the road,
Yep.
as depicted on the zoning map. And the same with LIB, you know, starting 1,000 feet, blah, blah, blah. But of course, then it goes haywire. So all of these things need to be
Yep.
either verified or newly defined. So that, and this is in talking with Sarah, you know, the building commissioner now, it's like, I have no way of really enforcing these because I have no, nothing tells me where anything really is. You know, it's not defined by anything I can measure.
And if you go to the maps that we actually have, those aren't necessarily correct either, so.
They're not correct because they were done by MRPC and they were a conceptualized, illustrative presentation of reality. And, you know, it says right on it, this is not to be used for, you know, regulatory purposes. But people
Classic.
are in fact
Yeah.
using it for regulatory purposes.
That's right.
And they shouldn't be.
Yep.
So when they go back to the actual bylaws and try to figure out, you know, the light industrial B starting 1,000 feet, you know, west of Hunter Avenue on the north side of Route 12 and on the south side, well, who the hell knows how far on the north side, how far on the south side? And there's nothing that I know if we could find it is the Warren article from 1973. There was an explanatory, I don't want to ramble on here, but there's documentation I haven't been able to find that explains why some of these districts look the way they do. and I just can't find it in the library or anywhere else. But I will send it to you. At least the references there too. I mean, unless you sat down either in the town clerk's office and, rummage through the safe or wherever she keeps this stuff, or, up in the temperature controlled room of the library, bring your sandwich and spend the day, you're not going to find this stuff.
Now, Marshall, on the Ashburnham zoning map, there's a disclaimer on it. And it
Right,
says, the information depicted on this map is for planning purposes only.
right.
All data are representational and are not adequate for boundary definition, regulatory impersonation, interpretation, or it's really, really small. It's hard to read even with my glasses.
It is. And
But
that's
it's
part of the
like-
reason why people don't.
It's a disclaimer, basically stating that don't go by this map because it's inaccurate.
Exactly. And so they say, okay, well, what should I go by? And the obvious answer is, well, go to the actual bylaw, which should explain to you where these districts are under section 2.2 labeled location of districts. But that doesn't. And that, I mean, I'm looking at the 1973 zoning map, which doesn't have a light industrial B district. So it must have been done like subsequent to 73. But, where is the original documentation that went before town meeting to establish this light industrial B district, which allegedly should define where it is? I don't know. Where do you find? Where do you
I wouldn't bet a lot of money on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
So, all right, so then we'll call it temporarily an end on the table of contents piece.
I think
Then
so.
As you talked about earlier, about going through and starting reviewing
Yeah.
what we think we're okay on. Do we
Yeah.
want to start with the general bylaws? Do we want to start with zoning? And I know from your discussions at the previous meeting, I think Walt had made mention of the fact that he thought it was better to have multiple eyes looking at the same thing. And I would agree with that position rather than, I am not personally comfortable, with what my opinions would be on reviewing some of these things. I'd want other people to look at it as well. So I guess the question is, how do we want to break that down and tackle it going forward?
I would go with the general bylaws first.
Yeah, let's do general bylaws first. Let's pick like the first several sections or whatever. Let's not do all of them in one meeting. We can do this, some of them there. We can each, agree to take a look between now and the next meeting. And, meanwhile, when we get to the ones that I have a few things, for example, that Roger has sent me in terms of things to look at when we get to some of the zoning bylaws and the planning board, the ones that the planning board uses. But, I'll just kind of keep a running list of them. And when we get to those, we'll, I'll point them out. And so I think we start with.
If we said,
Yeah, go ahead.
if we said under general bylaws that we would take a look at the first 7 chapters, is that too big of a bite? On because that's the, again, general provisions, town meeting, government of town meeting. I'm thinking there may not be a lot of heavy lifting there.
Okay.
I have nothing to back that up, by the way.
Well, that's to that point. Why don't we do it? Keep it to 7. Let's see what we all come back with. Maybe we can do. We'll find out what people were able to do and understand. And so that's not a bad idea. Why try to do all of them and find out? Oops, we're going in the wrong direction. So
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And if it ends up being more than we can get through, we'll each say so when we,
No, I know for a fact, like on chapter 5, capital budgeting, I've already submitted an amendment to that for the May town meeting because of we want to raise the dollar value. And there were, back again under our previous town administrator, there were a couple of things that were exempted in there, like police cars and firefighter turnout gear. So they're not subject to the capital budgeting process.
was that put in there by our previous town administrator?
It was.
Are you kidding me?
And
Oh.
I was on capital planning then. I fought that thing tooth and nail, and I was the only no vote. It doesn't make any sense. So right now the dollar value is $15,000, and we're looking at raising it to $25,000 because it's just more reflective of what things cost these days. So
Mhm.
so anyway, so I know, we may in fact be amending that one, but let's take a look at the first 7 and see
The
what we come
first,
back
the
with.
first 7 chapters under town
General
government
bylaws.
and admin. So from chapter 1 to what?
Following your, following your reorganization, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
So that means it doesn't,
Okay.
it's only like 13. It's not, it's only like, in the current bylaws, that's only about 10 pages, but
Yeah, I was actually
But
looking
this
at the
is
current bylaw.
going in this order, you have to kind of jump and pull those sections up.
oh, okay, so you're referring to the outline in the
Yeah.
current,
I'm referring to your outline.
Yeah, and I was referring to the current table of contents. And again, because I had the book open here and I was looking at that, so.
okay, so Bill, you're looking at the table of contents for the general bylaws.
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
I just thought, again.
Okay. And then as we talk about them next week, we'll just highlight that we've highlight them in his, or we'll highlight them in Marshall's outline so that we
Yeah.
can say we covered them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
then eventually Marshall's outline will be completely highlighted.
right,
Right.
right.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay, all right, that's
Understood.
good. Everybody's okay with that?
yep, good.
Sounds good.
All right, then, if we don't have any other discussion on that, any other new business other than the general code we talked about? Does anybody have anything else that they want to throw out there?
Not at this time, no.
Okay,
I
so
would just-
then let's move on to meeting minutes from the meeting on March 11th that I was not at. But would somebody give me a motion to approve the March 11th bylaw review committee minutes as written?
So moved.
It's been moved by Walt, and who wants to second that?
Glenn Hathaway, second it.
Okay, let me, I'll go through and we'll do a roll call vote. Bill Johnson's going to abstain. Walt Meisner,
Yes.
Glenn Hathaway,
Yes.
Dave Perry,
Yes,
Marshall Dennis.
Yes,
Okay, motion carries. And I think that's going to do it. So I will go ahead and post another meeting for next week with the thing that we talked about here. And if I get information from Norwell, Rentham, or any of those folks, I'll just bang it out to you in an email with whatever I can get my hands on. And
Okay.
as I continue to get more things, I'll just continue to push them out to you.
excellent.
All
Excellent.
right, I will make a motion to adjourn at
Bill,
like
excuse me,
6:58.
Bill,
Yeah,
before we adjourn, could I just talk to Marshall for 1 second?
no, Dave, I'm sorry, that's not going to be allowed. Yeah, go ahead.
You don't know
Out
if
of
you
order, yeah.
Go ahead.
Marshall, I just thought that I would give you a heads up that you
Yeah.
may be facing a little bit more opposition than you're anticipating about deleting that wetland protection district.
From
I just-
who? Really? I mean, we went through it at the, in pretty good detail last night's planning board meeting. And there's nothing controversial in it. It's just,
Oh, I'm not, personally, I'm not arguing the point with Marshall.
no, I'm just wondering who would object to it.
A couple different people, but that's, I mean, there's people that are going to object to what we're coming up with at the end, but none of them come to any of our meetings and discuss it. It's one of those things where people like to complain, but they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to come to fruition, but just a couple of things I've heard from a few different people. I just wanted to give Marshall
I appreciate it.
heads up that I've heard around town that there's some people that are not happy with that proposal. Let me put it to you like that.
I can tell you that when I went through it last night with the planning board, I was surprised at how simple it was generally. You know, it really was a lot less bureaucratic. It made a lot of sense. And I think when it's presented to, but you can tell the people who do object that the planning board has a public hearing on the 14th of April. And if they want to object to it at the public hearing, we would be more than happy to listen to their objections. I'm sure Marshall will come to that public hearing, I hope.
Well, I'm sure he will. I'm speaking for him, you know, in the third person.
I don't think you're going to have any trouble after I read it last night. I think it's pretty makes sense, but that's just me. We'll see.
I hear you, Dave. I understand.
Okay, I just wanted to give you a heads up on that,
Yeah,
Marshall.
acknowledged.
I'm hearing things, being around town, I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
That's it.
Good to
I
hear.
know that we're trying to bring this to a close. I have a Zoom meeting with the Ashby Board of Health at 7. That's kind of important anyway, so
Okay,
I'm gonna
Okay.
have to move on.
All right.
then I make a motion, we adjourn at 7:01. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Dave Perry seconded. Again, I'll run through the roll call vote. Bill Johnson, yes. Walt Meisner,
Yes.
Glenn Hathaway,
Yes.
Dave Perry,
Yes.
Marshall Dennis.
Yes.
All right, folks, have a good night. Thanks.
Good night,
Okay,
all.
You too.
See ya.
Yes, indeed.
Talk to you all soon. Good night.
Night.